very much, Ron. And it was great to hear Mamoon and Sai's presentations. Those were great. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name's Art Norton. I'm a security solutions engineer at Arm Cyber. So thank you for joining us today. Ransomware attacks are up 25% this year. The average ransom payment right now is a little over $1 million. So these aren't just numbers, they represent real operational disruption across every industry. We're going to talk today about, and unpack why ransomware has consistently outpaced our defenses. Explore what I call the ransomware gap, which somebody else made a reference to, another gap. Uh, Most importantly, discuss how to close it, because this isn't about prevention anymore. It's really about resilience. There were over 6,000 publicly disclosed victims globally in 2025. Uh, there were manufacturing, healthcare, and professional services are the hardest hit. And the real cost isn't just the ransom itself at all. It's the downtime, right? The recovery and the reputational damage that incurs because of this. So if we look at it's been with us for about 20 years, so it constantly reinvents itself. It's faster, harder to stop, and that comes. So if we look at the early days, you had the screen lockers in the early 2000s. They had crude screen lockers. They were annoying, but disruptive. But then in 2013, everything changed with crypto locker. That had strong encryption, plus it had the Bitcoin payments created by an anonymous person, where it was a scalable business model for attackers. This kind of lit the fire for today's ransomware economy. In 2017 is when it became a watershed moment, though, because you had WannaCry and NotPetya spread like worms globally. Hospitals, shipping companies, entire governments brought down in hours. It became a global crisis, basically. Within 2018 to 2020, the attackers got smarter again. They had groups like Ryuk, Maze, Reevil that pioneered the double extortion, encrypt your files and steal your data, right? Threatening to publish it. So there are fewer targets, but bigger payouts for them. And now today, it's a very mature industry. You have ransomware as a service, means basically that anyone with intent can launch attacks. We're seeing triple extortion encryption, data theft, plus DDoS attacks or direct customer threats. They're using things like EDR killers to disable your security and exploiting supply chains where, once compromised, vendors can open thousands of victims up. Something I've always remembered is and it rings true not just for ransomware, but also for malware, is that advances faster than the defensive technologies because the attackers, they only need one successful entry point. While us as defenders, we have to secure every vulnerability that's out there, which makes it really a lopsided type of situation that's going on here. So here's the pattern, right? Ransomware adapts faster than our defenses. That adaptation speed is the gap that we want to close. So if we talk about, the history and evolution of endpoint security, while ransomware was evolving, so were our defenses, but as you'll see, we were playing catch up. In the 90s and 2000s, we had the traditional AV, signature based. I liken it to a bouncer with a list of well-known bad guys. And if you're not on the list, you get in, effectively, when threats were predictable, but completely reactive. Then popped up in like 2010 timeframe was the next gen AV or EPP. We moved to machine learning, behavior analysis, and instead of waiting for signatures, we looked for those suspicious patterns, right? Which was a big leap. But ransomware adapted to that as well with things like fileless techniques, human-driven attacks. In 2015, you had EDR, right, which gave us the monitoring, the hunting, and the investigation capabilities. But here's the challenge with modern ransomware. It can encrypt thousands of files in minutes. EDR shows you what happened, but it's often after that significant damage has already been done. So we evolved into, XDR and, beyond that, right? You have XDR that, integrates all the signals across your environment and automates that response. It's very powerful. But ransomware groups now use, the triple extortion. They target backups. They're literally, in the ransomware attacks today, part of their methodology is to go ahead and target and look for and enumerate, the backup systems out there, right? So they're exploiting 0 days, and we're still kind of reacting. We're not getting ahead. Um, so, I mean, 75% of organizations have experienced a ransomware attack. Despite all the evolution out of defenses, we still have that number, which is pretty high. So every time security takes a step forward, the attackers innovate to stay ahead. So the question isn't just how we detect better, it's how do we flip the advantage back to us, the defenders. What is the ransomware gap that I spoke about earlier? It's kind of simple. It's the speed of ransomware innovation, and it's basically faster than the speed of the defense adaptation. It's very difficult for, large enterprises to go ahead and adapt new technology and whatnot. There's a lot of things to take into account. But on the other side, they simply just have to try new things. And when they find one that works, they utilize it. So they have many chances, a lot of time, and we're always on the defensive in that respect. The EDR killer tools that were specifically designed to bypass or disable your endpoint detection. The security team, deploys new defenses, and within months, the attackers seem to neutralize them. So, ransomware is now targeting the backups and the cloud environments first, right? So your safety becomes their first target. And despite all the technology, it's all about human error and social engineering, phishing, credential theft. Those remain the number one way that ransomware ends up getting in. So this is just creating a gap that continues to widen. So prevention alone is no longer enough. No matter how advanced our defenses, the attackers still adapt faster. It's become increasingly clear that no single solution is going to be 100% effective. It's just not. The best defense combines multiple solutions, working together in synergy, overlapping layers that make it a lot harder for the attackers to succeed. So having that layered approach in your defenses is definitely something we have seen that works when defending against things like ransomware. And it's not just a security problem, it's a business resilience problem. The challenge isn't really blocking the ransomware, it's about the operational resilience, detecting quickly, containing the damage, and recovering faster than the attackers can disrupt you. That's the game it becomes. So, how do we close the gap? Well, I mean, we've seen how ransomware evolves faster than defenses. So, how do we close the gap? It requires a kind of a fundamental change or a shift in strategy. Uh, the past was about prevention and blocking known threats with antivirus. The present is detection and response via EDR or XDR, catching compromises in progress. But the future, as Gartner calls it, is preemptive security. It's basically anticipating the attacker moves and disrupting them before they even launch. So the things that you want to look at are things like it's got to be intelligence driven, right? AI and machine learning, they don't just analyze today's threat, but they are able to predict the likely attacker behaviors. The continuous exposure management, so constantly testing and closing exposures before the attackers find them. These red team exercises are very important. Attack simulations, continuous validation that your controls in your environment are actually working. Disaster recovery exercises, all of those things are very important today. Having that layered defense, so the EPP plus the EDR plus the XDR overlapping defenses that force, attackers through those multiple barriers is going to be much more accustomed to going ahead and being able to stop these types of attacks from happening within your enterprise or company. The zero trust as well. I mean, there's no implicit trust. You minimize the attack surface, assume a breach, right? But verify everything. And one of the biggest things is this whole idea of focusing on resilience, right? These immutable backups, being able to have rapid restoration capabilities, and because the resilience is basically the last line of defense if prevention fails. Automation, of course, SOAR technology came out, 7 years ago, so automated response and orchestration, uh, because it's closing the gap isn't just about the defense, it's about the speed of reaction. So being able to close the MTTR, right? The mean time to respond. I mean, the ransomware uh, gap closes with preemptive, intelligence-driven security that stays ahead of our adversaries. And if we're able to predict and anticipate and disrupt these threats before they strike, while ensuring the fast recovery when they do, we'll flip the advantage back to us. Have some stuff, with regards to the healthcare industry. It's one of the biggest industries that's actually hit by ransomware right now. The impact in 24-25 alone, there were 389 health organizations hit. There was over 9 billion was the average for recovery cost. About 73% experienced some type of theft, some type of exfiltration. The downtime was 21 days. And then the patient care delayed, almost at 70% in a lot of these cases. Us, Armed Cyber, what we're doing is we're looking at, at the kernel level, we're at the kernel level only because it's the quickest way to detect and be able to prevent something from happening. So as soon as we see a read or a write call happen, where it happens to be some type of encryption routine or whatnot, we can check the entropy of a particular file. If that has changed enough, if that entropy is high enough, we can automatically stop that dead in its tracks, right? So there's a good chance that no files get encrypted, right? Or maybe it's one or two, but it's a lot less than it would be without this, right? Of course, AI being able to kind of be behind the entropy analysis itself, the zero-day threat protection we have, the fact that we're very quick in the response time, keeps you from losing that data that they try to wrestle away and extort from you. We have decoys. We have a number of different, our product has basically a number of layers in it as well. So layers within layers. And the clinical advantage is, that multi-layer defense that we have, we're able to kind of stop that ransomware pre-encryption, right? Preventing the downtime, protecting the patient data. Unlike, the traditional EDRs that, rely on signatures, the behavioral AI detects zero-day attacks instantly, and we have to fight with what they're using as well, because that's what it's all about, right? So, I mean, last slide here, a conclusion and a call to action. We've covered endpoint. Defenses have evolved, but ransomware evolves faster. It is evolving faster. The ransomware gap is fundamentally a resilience failure, right? The future requires both resilience and adaptive defenses working together. So the key takeaway would be it's no longer about stopping the ransomware. It's about surviving it and coming back stronger, And so the organizations that win this battle are the ones that are going to accept this reality. Assume you'll be hit, but build that resilience into every layer and just ensure that you can recover faster than the attackers can disrupt you. Thank you for your time today. I'd love to hear any questions.